Hello and welcome to the Classroom Connection, the show that takes you inside Marion County Public Schools. I'm your host, Kevin Christian, and coming up on today's show, we discover how bounce balls are settling things down in one middle school classroom. Learn how adventures with agriculture are teaching students the truth. And we soar high with some eagles calling one of our elementary schools home these days. Up first, though, a special treat for you. A few minutes with our recently named 2015 Marion County Teacher of the Year. Watch this clip.
I am proud to tell you that Marion County's 2015 Teacher of the Year is Bethany Crawford from Forest High School.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was a defining moment for Bethany Crawford, who now joins us in our studio to talk about the teaching profession. Bethany, as you go back and look at that night, what do you remember most about it?
Being completely surprised and being overwhelmed by the entire experience, and just the pride that I had to represent Marion County.
Did you think you'd cry?
I'm a crier.
We knew you would.
I'm a bit of a crier, so I really didn't think about what would happen at the end. So the surprise of it all, it was just overwhelming. I was concerned about the speech crying, and I did.
Well, I think sometimes that just adds to the sincerity of the moment. So, how has life changed for you since becoming our Teacher of the Year?
I've been very busy. I'm getting all sorts of speaking engagements and places that people want me to talk.
You get to be on TV now?
I get to be on TV now, which has never happened before, so that's been pretty amazing.
Tell us about the new car.
It's wonderful. It's the nicest car I've ever owned, so my daughter loves it, and my husband keeps telling me all the time, thank you so much for being a Golden Apple teacher and being the Teacher of the Year.
Now, I heard a story that you and your husband had recently purchased cars because you commute a good distance.
Yes, we do.
So I understand that Jenkins Auto Group worked that out with you and you were able to...
They did. We were able to take the value of what the lease was going to be and put it towards a down payment. So we were able to just purchase the car.
Tremendous.
So they were fantastic to us.
That's a great partner and a great story to hear. I'm going to take you back several years. Why did you become a teacher in the first place?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. I actually thought I was going to be a lawyer. But I ended up working for a summer while I was at University of Florida, working with some young ladies who were in trouble in a kind of a prison setting.
Sure.
And I loved history and I loved those kids, and I decided that I really felt like I could make a really huge difference working the lives of children in that way.
When you look back on your career as a student, who do you think inspired you most? Which of your
Peter
teachers?
Philbrook. I know that without even a moment's glance. It's actually two, though. It would be unfair to just say Peter Philbrook, but Leanna Dixon and Peter Philbrook are two people that just, I looked back and these were people that I wanted to emulate in the classroom.
Well, I recognize one of those names. She recently retired
Yes,
from our
she
school
did.
district.
She did.
What do you say to those who can never imagine being a teacher in today's society?
That it's one of the most rewarding jobs you can have, honestly, and that you get to take part in a young person's life, and it's kind of a gift that they give you, that you're able to do that, and you're able to help guide and lead people in a way that is so needed in today's society.
And I imagine you have classmates or have students who've come up to you through the years and said, thank you so much for taking time with me. And
yes, I have.
It's a great payoff, isn't
and
it?
I keep a file of all the notes and letters that they give me so that if you're having that rough day, you have something to go back and look at.
Public education seems to be taking a lot of heat these days for many reasons, but what is your perspective as a leading teacher, and I say that with all due respect now, as a leading teacher in public education?
You know, one of the things that people keep talking about is testing, and we hear that a lot, and standards, we hear that a lot. And I've worked in a couple of different districts, and one of the things that I think everyone needs to remember is that having standards and having testing doesn't change the role or the importance of a classroom teacher. It kind of just sets the stage of what you should be focusing on, but it still allows you to give your distinctive flair and to become the person, you know, in the classroom that you think your kids need on a day-to-day basis. It's just a framework.
It's still a calling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What would you change about public education? I know it's kind of just throwing it out there.
That's so difficult.
And for a person as passionate as you are, I'm sure that there are things that are handed to you either from us as a district or from the state, and you're like, I don't really think that's the right thing to do, or I don't want to do that. How do you handle those situations?
I think one of the things that's important is trying to get more people involved at local and state initiatives when things happen, so that they can become involved in selecting curriculum, being involved in creating the test. And I feel like if more teachers had the availability to be involved in those types of things, that they would feel like they had more ownership and that it would be a lot easier.
Parent involvement. We always encourage our kids to be there, our parents to be there for our kids. What's next for you professionally? You've been in the classroom how long now?
This is year 17.
Okay, that's a long time. What's next?
I actually have been thinking about it for a while, and I think I'm going to be in the classroom for a little bit. It's so fulfilling. You know, it's something that I'm not ready to give up right now.
Sure.
So I think you're going to see me in the classroom for a few years to come.
Well, that will be a new role for a Golden Apple recipient and Teacher of the Year. Typically, they advance up the career ladder and become school administrators. So
it's in the thought, but not yet. I'm pretty happy in the classroom.
Congratulations again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And congratulations on beating cancer.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Bethany Crawford teaches outside the classroom too with her husband John. Together, they lead the flag football team at Forest High School. Here's Joel Hartley with a closer look at this side of our 2015 Marion County Teacher of the Year.
It's pretty interesting for me just because he does also coach the boys during the fall, so he's usually gone a lot in fall, so it's kind of nice that we can do this experience together. And I think we kind of bring different things for the girls. So he brings a lot of the knowledge and some of the plays and calling and things from the sideline, but I'm someone who obviously knows the girls, understands sometimes body language, how they're feeling about things, and I can kind of read those situations a little bit better.
I'm serious. No negative attitudes, no nastiness. And just by you being nasty yourself, that hurts everybody else. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. You fight to the end and you keep your head up and you keep a positive attitude.
It's a little bit more teaching the game, but some of the girls are very knowledgeable. Actually, I'd say the thing that surprised me the most is how much these girls do know.
The girls pick it up exceptionally quickly, and it's pretty interesting because we kind of see all kinds of kids out here, especially that first day. So we have kids on that field whose fathers have raised them on football, who've been throwing balls with them since they were 3 feet high, and can tell you exactly what plays are and what the pocket is.
My dad's been a football coach, and like I always wanted to play football, and I found the way flag football would be the only way that I'll probably play football.
And then we have girls on the field that we honestly have to explain to them what direction they're supposed to run, and what 10 yards is, and what downs are, and what's the difference between a punt and a kick, because they have no football knowledge at all.
I actually really didn't know much about it. He taught us routes and stuff, so that was good. He made it more simple for us to understand in a short amount of time, because the season's actually really short. And so everybody here knows the play, and it's only been the 4th practice.
A lot of them have played in other sports, but this is the first time that they get to play something that maybe, their dads think it's awesome to come and watch, one of the games.
I played soccer for a few years, but I just thought it was something new. Like, we have powder puff, which is a less version of flag football. So when they brought this in, it was new, so that'd be fun.
I don't really have to hype it up that much. We put the spot on the announcements that we're doing it. If I see some athletes, I'll encourage them from my classes. I will have to be honest that the powder puff game during homecoming week, I did scout the powder puff games, looking for girls that showed potential. We pulled 2 girls out of the powder puff game from that. So maybe a little more competitive than average, but we want to win. We play to win.
There we go! Let's go, kids! Let's go!
He wants to win. I mean, clearly. He looks at this as just as competitive as any other sport he coaches. We want to win. Honestly, sometimes I think they take it worse than the boys. Honestly, they become very competitive. It's awesome to watch.
They are right up there. They may even be more competitive on some days, because with football, you have pads, you have a helmet, you're kind of hidden a little bit. Here, if the physicality goes to that level, then we're going to get penalties. So sometimes it's not so much the nature of it being girls, but the nature of it being football, where you're not supposed to hurt people.
Sometimes when you're going for a ball, even without any intention, if you're both diving for that ball, there are things that are going to be banged up. Our quarterback last year hurt her knee, so there's definitely times that things happen on the field. So, you just take it and roll with it. You tell the girls you'll be pretty for prom. You'll have a nice little matching bruise for that dress.
It's intended to be non-contact, but there definitely is contact. The referees will call things that are blatant. There is supposed to be no real blocking. The blocking you can get would be similar to basketball, with a block and a charge where fouls can be called. But in the gameplay, when girls are moving around, there's going to be collisions. And unless the referee sees something overt, they tend to let things go, so it does get a little bit more physical than you'd think with flag football.
Nice to see such energy both inside and outside the classroom. Well, speaking of energy, teachers of younger students often deal with excess energy in the classroom since most districts do not have recess these days. One local teacher, though, may have just come up with a solution. That teacher is last year's Marion County Teacher of the Year, David Steffi. Here's Tom Louder to explain.
Although at first glance this may seem a little unorthodox in the classroom, David Steffi has realized the need for movement in his class, even if it is just bouncing.
You know, I haven't done any studies, but what I see in the classroom, I guess there's a direct correlation. I think there are other things maybe involved, but I've written less referrals this year than probably I have in 4 or 5 years. I expect my children to be able to be active and move, and this gives them the opportunity to do that in a way that is not being disruptive in class. The children see it, and the first couple times they saw the Theraballs, they thought, oh my goodness, and kids were bouncing up and down. But honestly, after a couple days, it's like anything else, they got used to it, and so now it's not even a thought that there's a Theraball in the classroom. Do you listen to it over again when you do that?
Well, she tried the compassionate route, and then she tried to put the okie dokie on it.
You put it down. When you put it down and you sit on it, it's like when you get on the computer, it's like basically having a little bit of fun on the computer. Like you're learning and sitting on the bounce ball. Usually, when you're sitting in a chair, you just swing your legs and stuff, and when you're sitting in the Theraball, you just bounce and just spin a little bit.
The fact of the matter is, he's realizing that allowing the students to freely yet cautiously bounce their way to a better education is a good thing.
And so you're talking about a lot of core energy being used. We want the kids to focus and pay attention. So what we're doing is the whole idea of like when we were kids, the leg tapping and the pencil chewing and the finger wrapping, straw chewing, all of those things are dispelling or expelling energy.
Are there rules that were put in place to make sure that these Theraballs were used as intended for ease of learning?
Well, yeah, there had to be ground rules from the beginning, and the best way I have found is to use a student or two as an example who don't follow the rules. And so in the first week, I had a couple kids that wanted to dribble and bounce it, and I just said very politely, I've said no, I told you the rules, you didn't listen, so you're off the Theraballs for a couple weeks.
Do the Theraballs in the class really promote learning?
But to me, this was just, this seems so basic. It seems so right that we could use something that the kids could, and I realized that there's a lot of studies that show that this active movement can actually help the children focus when they're doing activities like they're doing in my class.
In addition to friends who help him out, Steffi also secured a grant to help pay for some of those bounce balls as well. Well, there is no bouncing around this next subject, standardized testing. It definitely is a hot topic these days in Florida and across our country. Janet Weldon is the Director of Assessment and Guidance for our school district, and she joins us now in the studio to give us some insight into this topic. Janet, I guess the first question right out of the gate here, first FSA, the first writing component on computer, pretty troubled at best?
It was troubled, Kevin. We started the computer-based testing for students in grades 8, 9, and 10, the writing component, the week of March the 2nd. And from day one, there were challenges with students having difficulty logging in, with students getting kicked out of computer-based tests. We even had a few cases where students typed their response and it was lost and we couldn't recover it. So it was a challenging experience for everybody involved. We had statewide, there was a cyber attack on the testing company's technology on Thursday of that first week, and that was a challenge as well.
With all of these issues, if you will, with standardized testing, do you think educators are losing confidence in those tests?
It's a challenge for educators to have full confidence because we're still getting accustomed to these new standards in the state of Florida. And as well, these are the first opportunities we're having to be exposed to these new assessments, both the paper-based and computer-based versions. So we're hoping over time that the performance of the computer-based tests will improve and that everybody can have more confidence in them.
If we know there's one constant in standardized testing, it's the constant of change. right?
Indeed.
What about parents? Do you think that they are losing confidence in this testing process?
Well, parents have become more vocal across the state of Florida with their concerns about how much time is being consumed by testing and how much emphasis is being placed on test scores, and if that is eating into instructional time or driving instructional practices to too much of an extent. So they're making their voices known about that.
Key word for parents seems to be opt-out, and of course that movement is spreading. Here in Marion County, our superintendent has made it clear he is not in favor of that. Do you think there will always be some level of standardized testing?
I don't think people realize that we've had standardized testing since way back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. We've had standardized tests going on for many, many years. But the concern has come to a new level, certainly with these new tests that are being implemented. I don't see it going away because they do yield valuable information for parents and students and teachers, of course. But how much emphasis we have on those tests and how many of them we have is certainly the subject of a lot of discussion in Tallahassee.
I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what do you see happening in Tallahassee right now?
Well, there's currently legislation pending that would reduce the number of tests, would reduce the amount of the contribution of test scores to teachers' performance evaluations. And we're welcoming the examination that our legislators are making at what we're doing with testing in the state of Florida.
Any prediction on what's coming down the pike as far as testing for the rest of the season? I mean, we test from now until really the end of school, don't we?
Pretty much until the end of school, yes. We are currently at the end of March administering Florida Standards assessments to 3rd and 4th graders. They're paper-based tests. We're doing retakes of Algebra 1 and reading for high schools. In April, we'll be moving into the Florida Standards assessments in English Language Arts and Mathematics for students in grades 5 through 10.
It just gets complicated here.
We'll be doing FCAT Science. We'll be doing all of the end-of-course exams for all the high school courses. So those will be rolling on almost until Memorial Day. Because they're computer-based, the schools get their labs set up, and then they bring in groups of students each day to test.
It's a different way of testing, isn't it?
It's very different, yes. I think that as we get more accustomed to it, we're hearing that it's going to work, but it's just going to take some time.
Well, time is up, unfortunately, for us, but I appreciate your insight and your time with us today.
My pleasure.
Good luck with the rest of testing season.
Thank you.
Here's to crossing fingers. Well, we all know that milk comes from a jug, eggs come from a carton, and honey comes from a jar, right? And you find them all at the grocery store. Well, that is what a lot of our youngsters think. So for the last few years, the Marion County Farm Bureau has hosted what it calls Ag Ventures to introduce 2nd graders to agriculture. Joe Hartley has more.
For the vast majority of these children, it is their introduction into agriculture. If you ask them where milk comes from, it's Publix, Walmart, Target, or whatever. They have no idea about where a hamburger comes from. You know, marshmallows come from cows. So they don't understand this. A lot of their teachers don't understand it.
For the last 5 years, the Marion County Farm Bureau has hosted about 600 2nd graders for an up-close introduction to agriculture.
They come in and we have some special gift bags that we send home with them that has a lot of different material and games on agriculture. Same for the teachers. They get lesson plan ideas and so forth. They each get a bandana that they can wear throughout the day, and then they get to take that home. But then they're exposed to at least 6 different commodities, and we try to stick with commodities that are here in Marion County, that are produced right here, so they get to see, you know, what our farmers in our local area do for a living and produce for them.
It's intended to be fully hands-on. Each station is meant so that the kids aren't just learning something, but they're participating in some way. So like in the honey station, they didn't get to have the live bees this year because it's too cold. That would destroy the bees, but they got a honey stick so they could taste what real honey is. The goats, of course, are jumping all over the place, and they get to pet those. The horses here, you know, they get to pet those. So the citrus trees, they get to simulate picking citrus off the trees and tasting orange juice. So it's meant to be as hands-on as we can possibly make it. And they're excited, you know, about citrus or the goats, so they want to learn more about agriculture.
This year, the number of students nearly doubled to more than 1,100.
We have lots of classes and teachers that come year after year, and that was kind of what our goal was this year, is we didn't want to turn anyone away. Yes, that's a lot of kids, but we think it's such a valuable experience for them, and so anybody who wanted to come, we wanted to make it happen for them, and we're very thankful we were able to.
It is a great field trip because it's so important that our children learn about agriculture. So many of them are just never around it at all.
We learned about citrus fruit, and we learned about bees, and we learned about what's inside the forest and stuff. I like the goats. They're pretty cute. You know, we had horses too, and I like the horses.
The second graders weren't the only students participating in Ag Ventures.
This year we have a number of students that are leading some of our sessions. They're doing an awesome job, and so we want the kids to know that they can participate in that way as they get older as well.
I feel like it's a great experience for us and for the little kids too. I mean, it's something that we don't really get to do. It's better than just sitting in a classroom. We're learning a lot more. It's learning a lot about leadership is what I feel like is really coming through here.
Ag Ventures is presented in late February so that it coincides with the Southeastern Youth Fair. It's good timing there. Well, while Ag Venture students got up close looks at domesticated animals, the students at one of our Southeastern schools, Stanton-Weirsdale Elementary, well, they have a front row seat to some beautiful wildlife. Once again, here's Joel Harley.
We saw the parents on the side of the tree, and then we wondered whether there were eggs inside, and sure enough, a couple days later, up popped two heads. So we knew that we had a full-fledged eagle's nest.
Located in a tree less than 200 yards from the edge of campus, the presence of the eagle nest has been a gold mine for the teachers.
The students have been writing poetry about the eagles. Students have been doing Venn diagrams, comparing them to other birds. We have had whole conversations about the fact that it's our American symbol. We've done some art and craft activities for students. We have actually done some work with some photography for students, and so it's been a well-rounded, full-fledged approach.
The enthusiasm for the Eagle projects and what we're learning, they all want to be experts. They all want to tell everyone that will listen to them about the Eagle and what they've learned, and that's exciting for me as a teacher, and that's what it's all about, give them that love of learning.
We've learned that they're the bird of the United States of America. It represents America and our freedom. It has brown feathers and white feathers on its tail and head, and the wings and the body is brown, and the body is light brown, and the feathers are dark brown. That their habitat, that they go in and nest in their nest, weighs about 2,000 pounds. It's pretty cool to have an eagle right there on campus. It's really good for the eagles to be by the campus, for us to to learn all about the eagles.
What do you think about it?
It's cool to have them out there.
It fit in quite nicely because we've already studied habitats and we've already talked about where the animals might live. So when this eagle moved in, or we were aware that it moved in, we talked about the eagle and the habitat, and it was like a review. But now we're going into U.S. government, so we're blending in how the eagle and why the eagle might be a symbol of our country.
The only drawback to having the nest nearby is the occasional interruption of PE.
If the ball hits the net.
Last week, I'm going to say the mama went fishing in Lake Weir, and she brought back in her talons, she had a fish that she swooped over the kids, and she took it right out to the nest, and the birds began to enjoy it.
The students and staff see their new neighbors as a feather in the school's hat.
We thought we were special. We thought that this eagle family must have chosen us at Stanton-Weirsdale to come, and the children have written poems about it. And one line, the student actually said, watching over us, that they were watching over us. So they do feel that we must be special on this campus for the eagles to be that close by.
Because eagles use the same nest year after year, the students and teachers are both looking forward to next year now that they know they need to be on the lookout. Well, we are in the home stretch of the current school year, and our superintendent has some important information to share in this month's Superintendent Spotlight.
I hope you have enjoyed this month's edition of Classroom Connection. I can't hope to keep up with the energy of Bethany Crawford, and I know Janet Weldon has brought you some important information about assessment. So you can see that April is a whole lot more than just income tax season, time to fertilize your yard, and worrying about spring break. I do want to follow up a little bit more on what Mrs. Weldon shared with about our assessment season. Students in Marion County and all over the state of Florida are testing the new Florida Standards Assessment. Not only is the assessment new and more challenging, but it is also being done on a different format. Many of our students are taking this assessment on a computer for the very first time. I think it's very important for parents and students and all of our employees to realize that it's important that we continue down the trail of accountability, that we continue down the trail of taking this assessment and take it very, very seriously. We know that the state is looking at the reliability issues. We know that the state is looking at the validity issues of the assessment, but I think it's very, very important in this time of accountability that our students and teachers take this assessment very, very seriously. So I wish all of our students good luck on the assessment as we proceed to the spring, and I hope everyone has a pleasant springtime.
Thanks, Mr. Tomyn, and thank you for joining us today on the Classroom Connection. Parents, remember, be there for your child every day.